Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This time it's going to be a list review for the Hunt for Glory tournament, which is going to be held in Eindhoven. This is a Bloodstorm tournament that uses 4,000 point lists, and this time we are not using any scoring units, or at least scoring units don't have any extra added benefits, because the only thing you have to look at is how many points you kill from your opposing army. So basically, you can lose everything in your army, but as long as you kill the opponent, you will get a lot of points. And also, there's going to be a mechanic where if you kill the enemy in the first turn of the game, you only get half points, I believe. Second turn, you get normal points. Third round, you get double points. Fourth round, you get triple points. Something like that. I don't know if it's exactly that, but the tournament rewards you for bashing it out a little bit at the start of the game and then really raking in the points at the end. So I do hope that a lot of people actually manage to play 6 turns. 4,000 points is a bit more than the usual 3,000 or 3,500 for Bloodstorm. But as the rules are not that complex, with the scenarios, this might still be manageable. Once again, I'm just going to talk about like half a minute per list because we have 40 participants, so it's going to be a long video if I talk for way more. So yeah, with that short intro, let's get into the lists. First, we have the Beast Herds. We have Johan. He comes to Bloodstorm events quite often, or at least recently, I believe. And he always brings a nice balanced list. This one is no exception. I think this is also just a collection that he has more or less, maybe. But well, obviously there's going to be some painting over the time with any player normally, I think. But anyway, his list, he brings quite a balanced list with just a Wild Horn unit, some Minotaurs, some Longhorns. I think for a general tournament, it's quite a decent list. For the specific format, I don't really know how it's going to affect Beast Herds, because Beast Herds usually focus quite strong on the ambush and then putting pressure on the opponent, like the turns 2 and 3. I think the game is normally decided with Beast Herds in these turns, and then afterwards it's either getting mopped up or being the one who is mopping up your enemy. However, maybe Johan plays the army in quite a different way. He has quite limited magic. I'm personally a bit of a fan of limited magic because I don't really value something like a double Wizard Master that highly. But maybe he has too little magic, but we will see. Then we go to Demon Legions Vincent. Vincent has been a player, not of 9th age, I believe, not that much, but before. He played a lot of Dread Elves, Dark Elves, maybe also some other elves. He recently got back into the game, so we're very happy to have him back. He's playing a Nurgle army, and I know that he has been building this one, and I hope that he manages to finish it before the event. He brings them all. He brings just the Nurgle core basically. So team-wise, I think the Myrmidons don't fully fit in. However, it's 9th age and it's not Warhammer anymore, so they do fit in. I think the Blazing Glories in this list specifically are a very good addition because they bring the very necessary armor piercing, which the Lemurs and the Hoarders don't have. So yeah, well done, Vincent. Then we have Martin with Dread Elves. Well, we already saw a Great Maw, so this time it's a dragon. There's some big beasts at the event, so I hope that people are also bringing stuff to get rid of these big beasts. It's a Dread Elf list without any magic, so it's in that sense kind of balls to the wall. I think it's gonna play quite nicely in the sense that it doesn't take that much time to play this army, so you are definitely gonna get these 6 turns. With only limited shooting as well, with the auxiliaries, the hunting chariot, and the black cloaks. The combination of Great Weapon Crippling Frost is a good one on a dragon because the Crippling Frost gives enemies -2 defensive, I believe. So the dragon's gonna be more likely to hit, and it also pairs quite nice with Judicators. I would expect in this case to have great weapons on the red knights because that once again combines quite well with the Crippling Frost upgrade on the Beastmaster. I think generally it's a nice list. It has a little bit of all that is available, and I think it might do quite okay against a lot of different matchups. Ditcho is bringing dwarves. I believe dwarves are one of the more popular armies at the event. I had a short look at this list and I thought it was quite a nice list. He has quite some funky choices as well. If I were a dwarf player, I would definitely consider a double engineer with Wormslayer rocket build, because basically these are just mini cannons, which I would say is quite good. But then again, I don't play dwarves, so maybe don't take my opinion for this. Grudgebusters are quite solid pieces, I also found out. The Forge Wardens, I think, are generally considered to be just a fluffy choice. And also generally the lists, it's a bit of a list that wants to go everywhere with just relatively small units, but then also like the 20 clan warriors is a bit in the middle of being just minimum size is 15, I think. And then you can go bigger, but it's 20 is not going to cut it anymore in a lot of different matchups, I think. So I think it's a nice list to just show off what kind of collection you have and just have some fun. We have Joris with dwarves. Joris is bringing a lot of seekers. It's not fully seeker spam, I guess, because then you would also have another unit of vanguarding seekers and a unit of greybeards that can also vanguard or something. So it's just a list with he only has one character, which is also something quite cool in a list that is for the rest quite combat built. So you're gonna just face a lot of dwarves basically. I think it's a nice combination of different units. Double seekers, yeah. I mean it's just really good at an event like this, where you don't care about losing them and where they will do quite some damage to the opponent. Now we have Lewis with Dwarvenholds. So Lewis, I believe this is a list that he has played a couple of times with 3 units of Kingsguard. Normally people consider a Dwarven King or a General to give Kingsguard bodyguard, but Lewis doesn't really care about that. And I can imagine that because the 15 Kingsguard units are quite cheap for the damage output that they bring. And then in addition he has all kinds of funky stuff to back the army up. Runecrafted flame cannon's really good. I personally don't know why you runecrafted dwarf cat. Well, probably Lewis knows better than me because he has been a dwarf player for quite some time now. I think it's a cool list, and I wish Lewis the best of luck. We have Tom. Tom is also bringing dwarves. He also has a lot of dwarves. He's one of the players that also recently added a very nicely painted army to the bunch of armies that we see at Bloodstorm. So this is a bit of an army with all kinds of stuff in there again. So we have Dragon Seeker this time, I think he's going to go into the Seekers. The Seekers are not as aggressive as in yours list because they don't have Vanguard. And I think well, there's 2 ballistas and an organ gun here. It's a total different setup from the previous lists where we had a catapult and 2 flame cannons, for example. I think the ballistas are still anyway in dwarves. I mean, 85 points for a war machine that probably people are going to still hunt down. It just has to do something in the game, right? And even if it doesn't, then probably your opponent's plans have been disrupted by you having it in your list. Generally, dwarves, I don't know if they're quite good in this setup of scoring points later in the game. I mean, gunlines inherently are going to be quite okay in the sense that you just whittle down your opponent and then mob up the rest in later turns, opposed to very aggressive armies that kind of finish the game in turn 2. So in that sense, this might work quite well. However, the Seekers, yeah, they are really good because you're going to damage your opponent and you might lose them. Nobody cares. But then again, they might have a little bit of a different dynamic with the rest of the list. That would be my only concern. Then we have Alex. Alex is bringing Empire of Sonsdal. There's a couple of Empire of Sonsdal armies around, and I believe they all feature just some electoral cavalry. However, this army seems to be cavalry only. I don't see any model without any mount, which is quite cool. Well, Steam Tank doesn't have any mount, I guess. Even though I don't know if the tank's actually harnessed by the engineer who's in the tank. Um, yeah, yes, just quite a good list. I always find it strange to see a Knight Commander on a Young Griffin that can go into Knight of the Sun Griffin. I would prefer to play it as a cowboy myself, and maybe Alex also does this. Knight Commander as a general with Light of Sun style. Light of Sun style is quite expensive compared to a cavalry pick with Titanic Might, but then again it's the Light of Sun style, so it just ignores all kinds of stuff in the game. Electoral Cavalry with a Solk standard through the Marshal and a Baron of Speed. This unit's gonna go fast. And then a Pegasus, which is quite vulnerable, to be honest, on a Pegasus, because, well, you're going to be large and all the other cavalry is going to be standard, except for the Knights of the Sun Griffin, so he can hide behind there. All in all, I think it's quite a decent looking list, in the sense that it's going to be quite fun to play with, quite fun to play against. However, the amount of bodies in the list is quite low, so you might not be able to break enemy units that easily. But we will see what will happen to Alex. This is my list. It's an experiment that I've been trying to put on the table for some time. However, with Bloodstorm, there are always so many conditions for scoring units. And this is a scoring less Empire of Sunstyle army. I do not have any single scoring unit, and I thought that was quite funny. I'm going to try to make State Militia work a bit. So I have 1,000 points invested into State Militia, which is, I believe, the most that anyone has ever done. But I mean, they're not too bad in the sense that I have a wizard added on divination, so they can get reroll to hit with their shooting and close combat. They can also get +1 to hit from other side with my apprentice, and then I can also still take no die enemy to be able to strike first. I have an arcane engine for a +1 to hit with them. They're gonna shoot, they're gonna stand and shoot, they're gonna strike first, quite likely, and then that's gonna be quite interesting to see, I think. I have some cowboys to just clog up some lines, and I have some flaglands to hopefully finish the job after the mortars and cannon have done some work. That's basically my list. Now we have Jeroen. Jeroen is also playing Empire, so he has, out of these three Empire lists, he is the first one to field heavy infantry and light infantry, which is quite remarkable for an Empire Sun-style collection of lists. He's also the first one to field Imperial Guard, so this is more of a conventional Empire army, where you have your cannon, you have your Imperial Guard, you have your support units. So it's basically just a balanced list, and I think it will be just balanced, just quite well, probably quite enjoyable to play with, play against. It's going to be good fun. Then we have Yordi. Yordi is, I believe he's the guy who uses the zombie pirate theme for his empire. He also doesn't have any scoring infantry, however, he does have scoring cavalry and Knights of the Sun Griffin. He has been playing with the Knights, I believe, already a bit, and also with the Sun Griffins. It's a remarkable army to see on the table, I find, so well done there. And then his cavalry is going to be packed with characters, and he's going to have one wizard who's lonely in the State Militia that you will have to catch somehow if you manage to get there after you've been through all the rest of the army, probably. Flaglands is an amazing choice in this format, I think, because while they do damage, they do die, but they do damage. Then we have Mario. Mario is bringing his Empire of Sunstyle. It's a bit of a different list where you do have the parent support system included in the army, but you don't have a heavy infantry support unit because there's only a parent unit. I think it's quite a nice list because you have some mobility in the electoral cavalry, you have some infantry that can hold back, and you have the pressure on the opponent with the steam tank and the mortar. Once again, we see the Light of Sun style. Once again, I would prefer personally cavalry pick with Titanic Might. And then we see the iconic prelate on the altar of battle with the Locket of Summer. I hope some people are going to be surprised by that because it is so amazing if you do manage to pull it off as an Empire player. So good luck, Mario, catching some scourges and dragons and whatever with your altar of battle. Now we have Peter. Peter is bringing highborn elves. Peter has double dragon, triple dragon even. So that is quite something to look out for. I think it's the Queen's Cavaliers. Yes, they're all Queen Cavaliers. So you have to mage with the Order of the Fiery Heart, who can actually dish out some combat stuff. Young Dragon, the General only has a lance, and that is basically it. So that is quite remarkable. Usually people put like Nova Flare or something on it. Maybe it didn't fit. I can imagine that it didn't fit on this format. And then to support the rest, he has some Sea Guards, some Lancers, and some big unit of Swordmasters. I know Daniel also played Airborne Elves, Dragons, and he would always also include still some Phoenixes. I don't know if it's possible in this type of list with the Young Dragons, but that was also really, really nasty to face off. But then again, Swordmasters also dish out quite some damage. I think it might do quite okay. However, seeing all of the shooting stuff that we saw before, with all the cannons and the ballistas and stuff, I don't know. It's at least you have favor of Morales to cover your dragons. Sicko. Sicko is bringing Highborn Elves as well. He is bringing the Swordmaster Flood. Um, so, yeah, it's basically a coin flip. If you do have shooting, if you do have agility 7 or higher, then you're gonna win. If you don't, then it's gonna be quite tough for you, probably. Swordmasters, they can dish out quite some damage. They do have advanced 6 now with the Warbringer of Armor. And they will have strength 6 on the charge as well, I think. So they will do quite some damage. However, they are quite vulnerable, obviously, to shooting. There's also no. Oh, I thought that there was no magic in the list, but there is a Master of Canary Tower. So I don't know if he can also get a hereditary or if he gets some ranged damage reduction for the Swordmasters, because Swordmasters don't like shooting. So I hope you don't see too much shooting at the event, and otherwise I wish you the best to cope with the shooting. But if you do get into the right matchups, then it will be absolute carnage. Now we have Ortwin with the Infernal Dwarfs. So Ortwin is playing quite a condensed list. So the previous events he brought some maxed units. I think this time it's only the Tauric Enforcers that are the highest unit size that they can get with the Great Weapons and the Blunderbusters. And for 560 points, it is starting to get a little bit costly, I think. But then again, I mean, you have blunderbusters. I believe they give you march and shoot. You have strength 5, 82 on your shots that hit on 4 plus, if I'm right. So 5 plus is long. Oh, they have accurate, I think. So that is going to be one turn where you set up the unit and then you give your opponent the choice. Well, are you going to charge me or am I going to continue doing this? Or you can even charge in with your great weapons. I think it's quite an interesting unit. It's a bit matchup dependent. Like if opponents have a solution to a 12 wound resilience 5 unit, then you're gonna suffer a bit. If they don't, then they will suffer. So the rest of the list is quite slow in comparison, even though you still have the Great Bull of Shamut and you have Kadim Titan. But Citadel Guard, I don't know how these guys are worth 650 points, but probably Ordwin will prove me wrong here. Then we have Flores as a reserve. He's playing with Kingdom of Aquitaine. I believe he's the only Kingdom of Aquitaine which I was quite surprised by. But maybe it's not really an army that people want to throw into the fray and see what happens. So yeah, some knights, some extra knights, some knights of the quest. I think they should be toned down at some point, but maybe that's only my opinion. Especially just the combination of Knights of the Quest where the Druid is a master. It's just suffering for some people. Here's a Hippogriff. Hippogriff's cool, I would say. It's funny how there's quite a difference between either people playing quite big monsters or people playing cannons and the like. So it's a nice balance to see. But I think it's a cool list with some knights and a special unit of knights, and nothing over the top. So that's a cool list. We also have Ogre Counts at the event, led by Daniel. So Daniel is bringing three blocks of ogres and a unit of tuskers. He has the necessary chaff. He has a kin eater, and then he has the characters to round it out. So basically, this is just quite a well balanced ogre count list. I think at any event it would do quite okay. And yeah, it just seems like just a tournament list, but then without the obligatory Stonehorn or Frost Mammoth. But the rest is nearly all there. Um, yeah, so I guess it's gonna do quite okay. We have Kirti as well with other counts. I thought Kirti would come with Highborn Elves, but apparently he's coming with Oak counts. He has a Mammoth Hunter on a Rock Rocks and another Mammoth Hunter with just Essence of Mithril. I don't know if this is the team list. Yeah, it is the Wild Heart list. Okay, maybe so. This is one of the events where you could get away with Wild Heart, and then he took the chance and just went for it. So he has a big unit of tribesmen. He has 2 units of Tusk Cavalry. He has double Rock Rocks and a Frostman. I don't know how well the Frost Mammoth combines with the Rock Rocks. I just literally have no idea. But the Tusker Cavalry, if they're within Frost Mammoth range, that's going to be quite okay. Funny though is that they have great weapons, so probably I'll just strike at the same time as Kirti will. But then again, Tusker Cavalry, once they get the chance to do their damage, they are quite potent. We also have Kun with his Red Ogre Khans. I think he takes normally quite similar lists with the Red Ogres that he has. This time though, he went for double bombardiers and a thunder cannon. I think that is different from the previous times. I have no idea. Um, I think it will do quite okay. Um, so you have the bombardiers that can just shoot every single turn, whittle down the enemy, and then you have the rest of the list that can go in and mop up the remains. Sabertooths for the chaff. So list-wise, it's quite a decent list, I would say. And the Rod of Battle is a nice buff with your Pyromancy Master, in addition to probably Flaming Swords, so you can get that juicy +1 to hit for one of your units. We have busts with orcs and with goblins, goblins and a couple of giants. Um, so it's a list where you have only goblins, so you can get a Goblin King that gives you +1 discipline. It's quite a ballsy Goblin King because he's on a Cave Nasher, so you can get singled out. If your Goblin King gets shot off or matched off or anything in that sense, if the rest of your army is going to be disciplined 6 max, I think. The positive side, however, is that a lot of the stuff is fearless anyway. So the Nasher Herd, I believe, is fearless. Nasher Dashes are fearless. Raving Team's fearless. War Machines don't really suffer. So it's only the Giants and the Cave Goblins that really suffer from losing the General. And you don't have your Warlock, obviously. So double Russian National Wrecking Team is something that, yeah, I mean, I don't personally like it. However, in a list that is themed as much as this one is, it's just not to include. So, yeah, good luck to Boss as well. We also have Jan with Orcs and Goblins, so he has both Orcs and Goblins. Basically, he's rocking a list with just a big block of Head Bashers, a big block of Iron Orcs, and then some support stuff. He has a Warlord who's gonna still kick ass. He has a Shaman who's gonna kick ass on his Sport Chariot. Um, and then for the rest, everything's gonna be fine, I guess. I mean, you have some obligatory chaff, you have some annoying scrap wagons, and some fire support to make the enemy come towards you. I think people are gonna be surprised by the amount of hurt that Bashers and Iron Orcs can do. Jeroen is also bringing orcs and goblins. I believe he's also bringing only goblins actually. So he also gets the +1 discipline bonus from uh, having no single orc in his army. And I think I prefer this list over Boss's list, to be honest, because it's a bit more a bit different from the obligatory double racking team, triple giant kind of stuff. Um, so yes, two big units of goblins with mad gits. Mad gits are always good against specific things and then not so good against some other things, and they still have to get there. So the Orcs and Goblins book, for reliability, it would definitely need an item to be able to reroll your distance on your mad gits or something like that. Some cave trolls, some Nashor herds. Nashor herds not at a size of 10, not at a size of 24, but 15. 15 is a funny number for Nashor herds. However, it does alleviate it above the limit where you're only 10 big and then you lose some and then the unit doesn't do anything anymore. So I think it's an interesting number. Um, and at 200 points, it's also not really a commitment, or at least not the same level of commitment as 24 is. I think 15 is maybe just the good spot to be at. Then two Gargantulas, yeah, they stay solid as long as you don't face anything that is like a cannon or something. Then we have Mott. Mott is also bringing orcs and goblins. So Mott has both orcs and goblins, so he doesn't get the bonus for the general, but he has the orc warlord on the wyvern. Um, Once again, quite a risky choice. However, I mean, if you have some terrain on the table, if you have something to hide behind, like, I don't know if Mod has anything to hide behind. I don't think so. So if you have some terrain on the table, he has a Gargantula actually on the Goblin King. So you can hide behind the Goblin King with your Warlord if you would want to. And otherwise, yeah, it's a cool list. He has some Faralogs with Green Tide. He has all kinds of different stuff, and I like that. That you don't have any doubles except for two Scourers. Even though myself I play 4 units of State Militia and 3 units of Flaccolins, but I mean I didn't want to take any scoring, and that's the only way to do it with Empires. So good luck, Mats, and we might see each other at the table. I don't know. Nick is also bringing orcs and goblins. He also has both orcs and goblins. So he has some magic. He has some well, orcs and goblins. Also a Gargantula. Also double racking team. And I don't really know why he has 2 units of 20 goblins, because that is normally something you bring along for the scoring. Maybe he just took a list from the internet and what they were in. Could be. Maybe he really likes them with just one mad git. And I mean, as a flanking unit, it is not even too bad to just have one mad git somewhere and have a unit with 3 ranks and a banner and possibly a charge. Um, I, I mean, I'm not an Orc and Goblin player, but I can see the potential of having it as a counter charge piece, where some fast cavalry comes up and you can just charge with your 20 goblins and not give a hoot about what's going to happen. I mean, if you have to declare a charge on a 12, why wouldn't you? Because if you make it, then the opponent's going to be surprised. If you don't, yeah, then your unit of goblins didn't make it. Oh no. Yeah, so good luck, Nick, and yeah, basically that. Rico is also bringing Orcs and Goblins. I believe Orcs and Goblins is one of the most popular at the event. I was secretly hoping for a lot of ad bashers at the event, so because I think State Militia are quite good against that. But we don't see that many, or at least not as many as I had expected. But you can also see why maybe in this list, like 32 Orc ad bashers with spears is 835 points. That is a big chunk of points. However, they do go through a lot of stuff quite rapidly. And if you do charge them, then they're still agility 4 if they're being charged, I believe. So they still strike quite quickly because of this base. He has a Farolog Wizard Master Thaumaturgy. For Rod of Gold, probably. Double rushing, Nashor racking team. 4 Scourers. This feels like a hard list to face, maybe, but it's gonna be okay. The scorers will just miss. The wrecking teams will run into each other, and everybody will be happy except for Rico. Um, no, it's quite a lot of stuff to handle for your opponent, I think. But if everything falls apart, it's gonna fall apart quite quickly, maybe. So yeah, we will see on the table what's gonna happen, and best of luck to Rico. We have Robin J. He is bringing a different core. He is bringing mounted head bashers. Is that core? That is not core even. So he is bringing similar core to the other players. But what I was going to say is that he is bringing mounted head bashers. They are feral orcs, and that is. If you would play these, I would always include a BSB, which he has also done, so that's good. And I would probably want the highest discipline that you can get. Um, but he's bringing a Orc Chief General, which is discipline 8, I think. So you are going to take quite a lot of tests, frenzy tests, at discipline 8 maximized. But then again, I also see a theme in the list where every single orc is a feral orc. So kudos to that. I really like themed lists. Um, Something's gonna go wrong if your opponent knows to draw out your charges at some point, and whether it's gonna be good or bad, you'll see after the dust settles, right? So you can chaff a little bit in the first turn of the game with Grotling units, and then afterwards it's just gonna be bashing. I think he's gonna just push the list forward, see what it does, and yeah, look at the result. It's gonna be a fun match to play. I think. I think I would enjoy it at least. Then we have a different army. Hey, we have Saurian Ancients with Eric. It's a relatively new book. It is kind of similar to the previous book, so I can say something about it. Um, And one thing that you notice here in Eric's list is that he doesn't have a single character. Uh, Saurian Ancients don't have a general anymore, so that is maybe a surprise to some people. They also don't have a BSB option, I think, and they don't have musician options on their units because the champions give it. I don't know what, or they all have automatically musician. Could also be. But anyway, no general, no man. He does have magic. So magic wise, the champions in the units are actually also wizards. I don't know if the champion in the Skin Gorillas is also a wizard or not. But then again, in Dagger Warriors, you both have a champion. In the Skink Warriors, you have a champion. And don't worry, these champions, they are way more expensive than they used to be. And to compensate for the fact that they're also a wizard. So what do we have? The Dagger Warriors are basically Saurian warriors, just the Saurian veterans, whatever. And the funny thing now is that you can include these Tyroscutus guys into your units. So probably one of them is going to go in each of the Dagger Warriors, and then you have one left who's going to go with the Skinks. I thought that was, yeah, the Venomous Fortress, I believe, allows you to go into the Skinks. I'm not sure enough about this army to really say a lot. I know that the Carnosaur can also go into the Raptor Riders, and that is quite funny. And you have a lot, to be honest. So the main units, like the Dagger Warriors, the Skink Warriors, and the Kaiman Warriors, I believe, they also give out minimized discipline to units around them. But it's all going to be discipline 7, 8. I don't, I don't know. But it's a list that I'm talking a bit more about because I just also want to explain a little bit to people. Basically, it is a revival a bit of the Skink Cloud with 3 units of Skink Gorillas, and then the real bunch of the list behind following it up. So the Skinks are there to set up the charges, the rest is to do the charges, and then hopefully everything goes well. Yeah, it's funny to see a list without any Carnosaur, without any Taurosaurs. Um, and without any Anurag Archmage or Slan Mage Priest. Um, Yeah, I think it's. I would definitely want to face something like this, and that is quite nice because I am gonna face Paul, who also plays Saurian Ancients. So to me, this is quite a good practice against Saurian Ancients. Paul has a different list though. He has double Alpha Carnosaur and he has a Taurosaur, so he has quite a lot of big monsters. Matchup wise, with my matchup against Paul, I'm quite happy with my cannon. I'm also still quite happy with my double mortar because I'm just going to try to shoot a ton off and then see what's left over. Um, so he has three main fighting units, which is the Caimans, the Dagus, and the Skinks. Because the Skinks are gonna get one big beast in there, I think. Or they don't. I have no idea. The Tyroscut is hurt. I believe it's just one guy, but I think so. Yeah, so it's a list with three combat units, with some chaff in the skin gorillas, with some more chaff in the pterodon riders, and then salamander. Salamander is not as crippling anymore against infantry; it just has a breath weapon that it can use every single turn, which I thoroughly appreciate. Then we have Sam. Sam is playing Saurian Ancients, and Sam has also an Alpha Carnosaur. Um, I have no idea what the Saurian Ancient specific magic items do, to be honest. So what I see is once again four combat blocks. I don't know to what extent the Tegu Mystics are a combat block because they are more like the special choice mage. If you really need more mages, um, and then for the rest, I think this King Veteran on the Mountain Pterodon is quite a fun piece because I always like these large size flying mobile characters basically when I play with them, and when I play against them I always find them annoying. Sam, it's a nice list, and I also hope to see you at the table. Nico is bringing Sylvan Elves. So Sylvan Elves, they have had a bit of a revival since the ETC and the WTC. Don't know if it also affected people's choices to bring them to Bloodstorm or not. But basically, the entire book has gotten quite a bit cheaper over the time, and that was mostly because it was underplayed, and then they gave them discounts, and now they're quite good again, I would say. Or at least the damage output that 9 Wild Huntsmen do is quite remarkable. I once had a dragon die to 3 of them, and yeah, I was quite surprised. Um, Yeah, so this is quite a balanced list with all kinds of different stuff. I don't think it goes too far in any aspect. If you allow the list to do what it does, then it's mostly going to just charge with its Wild Huntsman with the Forest Prince and then kill everything because these guys are quite killy on the charge. Um, yeah, it's a nice list with all kinds of different stuff. One thing I'm always concerned about with Sylvan Elves is due to time limits, you have players that shuffle around their lines all the time and it's going to take a long time. So I hope that this is not the case, but then again, list wise, it's a nice list with all kinds of different stuff in there. So go get them. Nick is also bringing Sylvan Elves and he has a bit more straightforward list with just triple Wild Huntsman. These are gonna kill stuff on the charge. If it's basically a coin flip, this list. Like, does your opponent have suitable shooting to keep them at bay or not? If he doesn't, then you're gonna die. If he does, then Nick's gonna die. Um, so they are quite nice to play with. As an opponent, you really have to make use of the little rules in the game where they are frenzied. They have quite a long charge range. So with the Force Prince General, you only have Discipline 9 still. He does not have a BSB. So what I would do is just try to make him make unfavorable charges where he can only get like one model in on the charge, and then try to get him on the counter charge. And that would be the way to beat him, I think. I did try it with a Varkalag also sometime at the WTC, and then my opponent passed his frenzy check, and then that didn't really work out. Yeah. So then we have Yollet with Undying Dynasties. This is also an all-mounted list, I think. So there's no single skeleton on foot. I think it might be among the lists with the lowest model count. It's 20, 30, 34, 35 models, something around that range. He is bringing a Wizard Master, so he does have some magic. Um, Usually these Tomb Cataphracts are quite solid. Uh, Casket is quite fun to bring along. Um, I don't know how 3 skeleton chariots fare in the grind. Normally your units are a bit bigger then. So I think I would have increased the size of these skeleton chariots a little bit at the expense of some other stuff. Um, then again, you still also want your general to survive, especially in a list like this, where the skeleton chariots otherwise just crumble away. Um, Tomb Reapers with paired weapons, always a good choice. Dread Sphinx, definitely also a good choice, depending on the matchup. So yeah, I would say it's quite a solid list, but I don't really know that much about the Nine Dynasties, so maybe there's alternatives that are way better. Um, but I like this list already for the fact that it's just all mounted. Mick is also bringing Undying Dynasties. He is actually, I think, bringing the lowest model count list. So he has 1, 2, 3, 9, 19, 23, 24, 25, 26 models. So terracotta means that his chariots are 1 resilience higher, so the resilience 5, I believe. So you have a unit with 18 resilience 5 wounds, which is quite impressive. I think this is a decent unit. I mean, 4 attacks per model for the skeleton chariots are just a lot. And then with resilience 5, you're not gonna get that much damage yourself. I think people are gonna underestimate the damage output that these skeleton chariots are gonna have, even though there's no magic to support them. Um, Sun Scorpion with terracotta is funny because it's just quite cheap. Dread Sphinxes are still quite funny with resilience 8. So yeah, just don't run into any cannons, Mick, and then you'll be fine. Harem is bringing his Vermin Swarm, he's bringing a double bell or a double platform, so the Whispering Bell and the Pestilent Bell Pit. That is quite a fluffy choice. Fluffy is the word. So yeah, it's the old 2 towers kind of principle. I didn't know. I did know it was possible with this book. I didn't see it actually on the table. So that fluff-wise, that's a cool choice. Then you have Legionnaires, Blackfurs, Mamillos, and Plague Disciples, so a lot of combat stuff. He's not going to shoot that much except with the Doom Sparks, so he's not going to hit any 2-hit rolls, I think, but he's still going to shoot because his Doom Sparks they just roll the amount of hits, and the Deep Fire throwers are going to roll if they hit at all, if they're allowed to fire, and then everything is auto hit. So yeah, so cool. A shooting list or a list with shooting without any 2-hit rolls. um, yeah, Vermin Swarm generally people have to have played it once to see what it does more or less. And I don't know if people at Bloodstorm are used to Vermin Swarm by now. So maybe people will get surprised by the special rules that Vermin Swarm has. It's a cool list. I like that he doesn't bring a dictator because I've seen a dictator way too often in the lists with Vermin Swarm. Um, yeah, it's. I think it's a cool list. Also because it excludes the very extreme devices in Vermin Swarm. Then we have the Warriors of the Dark Gods. I believe this is the army that was picked. That was the second most popular, or not the most popular. I believe Orcs and Goblins was the most popular, then Warriors, then Dwarves. So we still have a way to go. We don't have any Vampire Covenant, which is not that surprising, I would say, in an event where you really have to kill the enemy fully. So Warriors of the Dark Gods, we have someone who did it, a general on a Wasteland Dragon. That is quite cool. In Warriors of the Dark Elves, it's quite rare to see someone mount his general on a dragon because the dragon doesn't give your lord that much of an advantage. So you get the same ability with a black steed. The Chosen Lord is already killy enough, or can be as killy as this setup without having a dragon. The only thing that you increases your hit points, but you are becoming really vulnerable to, for example, a cannon. The Weirdstone inclusion is very smart there because then you negate the first hit that your model suffers in the game. So if you play a matchup where you face off against a cannon, you just hold it in the back of the table, and then the first time the cannon hits, you say, "Oh no, you didn't." Oh. So that is just a good setup. Um, it's a shame that he has to be the general. But in an event where you don't score points, it does make sense, or where you don't get any negative results from having your general die, because you only count the amount of points that you are getting and not what your opponent is getting. Otherwise, warriors, warrior knights, chosen knights, he has it all. Basically, it's also like a little bit of a theme list where he doesn't have all kinds of the wacky monsters and stuff. He just goes for warriors, except for the fact that he also has two chimeras or two wretched ones. I'm personally a big fan of the single wretched ones. I already did a video about, or where I included them. I think they're a good nuisance for your opponent. And in a format like this with the racking teams, they're also quite a good counter to racking teams because you even spend less than the racking teams. Then we have Calvin with the Voice of the Dark Gods. He has a Feldrak ancestor. He's gonna kill stuff. Then we have a Chosen Lord on a Karkadon. You don't see that too often because he's usually quite vulnerable to shooting. Once again, this guy has the Weirdstone. So if he goes in the Chosen Knights, first you have to kill an entire Chosen Knight to be able to put a hit on the Chosen Lord, and then the first one that he gets is going to be negated. So the chances that he's going to get sniped with the cannon are quite small. That being said, it can happen. And then, yeah, compared to the previous list, this list has way less. It feels like because you only have like a big unit of, or well, a relatively big unit of warriors, a small unit of warriors, a big unit of chosen knights, and then the Feldrak ancestor basically, and then the points are gone. So I hope that the chosen lord can make his points in terms of value. Because someone has to. I think that Anthropic Aura is a good enchantment, especially with Gluttony also. I always try to include it in my list, and at some point it just drops out, the Anthropic Aura upgrade. And I don't really know why, but I think that alternatives are killy enough and they don't really change your matchup. So, well done with the Anthropic Aura. I still want to bring it sometime and find motivation to do so. Now we have Luke. Luke has Warriors of the Dark Gods as well. So he went for the play where you have a sky wheel on your sorcerer. You don't see that too often. Mostly because it doesn't really add anything to your sorcerer normally. However, with occultism it does make some sense because you're a bit more restricted in your range. Then again, you can also get Phil Walker run him on foot, and then you get your extra range as well. But Skywheel allows you to go into locations where you otherwise would not be able to. It is a 530 point model that gets shot off by a cannon in one go though. So seeing the other list, there's going to be one match probably where this also is just going to get shot off. Otherwise, we have more of an MSU style of warriors. I think it's nice to see. I prefer to play warriors myself, a bit more MSU than with the big bulky units. I always include a Helmo if I play MSU, but then again, it changes the game completely. And actually, for Bloodstorm, it might not be the nicest thing to do because your opponent is. At Bloodstorm, there's also less experienced people playing the game. And putting a Helmo on the table then suddenly changes everything. One comment I would give on the list is that there's no musicians on any of the units. I know it's 10 points, however, in some cases you really want to have a musician, or at least I would. I mean, on the entire list, it's 60 points for your units to get musicians. I would say it is worth it, and out of all the units, I would say it's least worth it on the players and more on any of the other units. But then again, maybe it's just a witty wick list, like what you feel is what you get, and then he has a musician for the players, so then the players have to have a musician. I don't know, um, but I would consider putting musicians on the other units. Paul Rijmakers, I believe, is also going to Bloodstorm, and he's bringing Warriors of the Dark Gods. He is bringing this specific list. Exalted Herald is always cool to play with, at least to play against. It's a funny piece because if your opponent doesn't make full use of the upgrades that the Exalted Herald can choose at the start of the game, it's a bit of a waste. So you have to know what is going to bring you revenue in a game, and that is sometimes quite hard to figure out. Also, 860 points for a wizard adept with an extra spell. You have to make use of the combat capabilities of your herald to make sure that you kill a lot of points. So in a matchup where it's also okay to just draw and retreat in the last turn of the game with your Exalted Herald left on 2 points and then just or 2 hit points, and then maintaining full points for your Herald, that is quite nice. In a format like this, I wouldn't expect a Herald to do as amazing as some of the other choices you could bring. He has a Chariot with the Apprentice. I'm a bit confused about why you would take the Sorcerer for this, but maybe it's just to take Lord of the Damned so that you get a reroll on the random move of your Wretched ones. I would personally say that just a normal Warrior Chariot or a Chosen Chariot with some upgrade is better than the Sorcerer, but I don't know if I'm right there. I mean, otherwise you have 3 spells. Basically, a sorcerer is equally expensive as a chosen chariot, so you get an extra spell, you get the reroll on the wretched one. So it's it's a decent choice. It's not a bad choice in any sense. Then he has Sloth Warriors that are always a brick to shift. Wretched ones. This list has a bit more bulk, and I'm quite curious how it will do. Um, because it has quite a lot of killy stuff. Then we have another list with an Exalted Herald. This one is led by Robin. Um, so, if I'm right, your Anthropic Aura on your Chosen Lord ignores your Thrice Forged and your Symbol of Slaughter on your armor and hand weapon. However, I could be wrong. Um, and I also, you bring what you want. Um, And otherwise, we have a list with some Sloth Warriors, some Chosen Knights, some Feldrogs, and a Feldrog Elder. It seems like a nice list, like a lot of different stuffs, and yeah, you can have quite some fun with this. Warhounds tend to chaff, so basically, the just the general principle of the list is there. Um, Once again, I really am curious how people will do with their Exalted Heralds in these matches. So please let me know after the event. Rule is also bringing Warriors of the Dark Gods. He is bringing the Wasteland Behemoth, which is a cool piece, so I like that. And then he's also bringing Lord of the Damned with a Forsaken one, so he has to reroll on the move of that one. Some decent units with the Warriors, with the Chosen Knights, um, and obviously a Feldrag Ancestor with a Halberd with Supernatural Dexterity. Um, I hope that Feldrag Ancestor is gonna kill a lot of stuff, because that would be awesome. Tim is playing a bit of a different list. Once again, an Exalted Herald. Go get them, boy. Warriors with Envy and Banner of Speed. That is quite cool. That would mean that you really want to push with this list and get in there. think the Chosen are now at the same speed as your Warriors, so they are each March 10. The Warriors have Swift Stride, the Chosen don't. Um, Chosen without Swift Stride is a problem. That is one of the problems of Chosen. I'm not a big fan of Chosen, um, because well, there's some conditions on which I would feel Chosen. There's mostly two of them. Let's see, is there two of them? There's, I think there's two. So one of them is as a unit of six with Pride. And what kind of weapon would you give? I would just give them shields, because then you go to defense 7. A lot of some stuff is going to hit you on 5+. You're going to be reasonably tanky. You can have a small footprint, so you're not going to take that much damage, and your damage output is still 18 attacks. And with Pride, you have minimized discipline, which is something that Warriors doesn't really have a lot of in the armies, like very reliable blocks that can still grind a little bit and stay in combat. Because the most reliable would still be a Chosen Chariot with Pride then. However, these kind of pieces are quite vulnerable to something like ballistas, cannons, Quicksilver Lash, stuff like that. If you have 6 Chosen with Pride, then they don't have that problem. Or with Sloth, 6 of them in a unit with a icon, with the, what's the name? The Battle Shrine, with a wizard on top, that you can teleport through a Helmor, because then your unit has the same defensive stats as the Battle Shrine. But I'm getting a bit off topic here. So I think this list wants to get in there quite quickly. I am curious if it's gonna happen. It feels like the list is just a little bit too slow, but that is what Chosen general problem. So you are gonna have your Warrior Knights putting pressure on the opponent turn 1. Chosen will arrive a turn later, and then you have an opponent who can first take care of the Knights and then take care of the second wave of enemies with the Chosen. I might be wrong. You can also coordinate it a bit better, obviously, as the player, because then you can just keep the Warrior Knights a bit more in the back, and then later deliver everything on turn 3. Or, I mean, basically you want to make points later in the game anyway, so it might not be that bad even that you're a bit slower. And we didn't see that much stuff that really reliably does multiple wounds to kind of damage on long range. So the Chosen might still be fine. So that is going to be all the lists of the event. If I were to pick a favorite, well, obviously I'm quite intrigued by Mixed List because it has the lowest model count, and I'm quite curious what these Skeleton Chariots will do. I am also quite intrigued by the Saurian Ancients lists because I don't really know what they do. So out of these, I would say that, well, this one is most balanced, so that is always quite interesting to see how it performs. It doesn't really feel like any of the others really have a well thought out general game plan. It's more like answers to problems that people might push you away. Hogs and Goblins, it's mostly fun, right? Just running forward and screaming. Ogres, I would say that I don't value. If I were to pick one list that I'm gonna think is gonna win the event, I think it's gonna be one of the dwarves, honestly. Yeah, it's gonna be one of the dwarves. Because they do have some damage that they can use to whittle down the enemy, and then later they can go in with. Lewis's list actually looks quite scary with the King's Guard. Flame cannons are underrated, so Lewis knows that they are quite good. Steamcopters are good to get some stuff out. Vengeance, yeah. I think I would go for Lewis's list too. win the event. Let's go for it. Yeah, so Lewis, no pressure, mate. You're just gonna win the event. Yeah, that's gonna be it for me. Yeah, please let me know if you have any comments, anything to say, and then I will see you the next time.